What's up? I can't figure out how to do an intro, so I'm just going to hop into it. I've been writing up the annual report for Learn Adventurously, just kind of summarizing everything that we did in the year and what we're looking to do in 2026. So in this video, I'm just going to break it down very, very simply. We're going to keep this kind of casual, and I'm just going to explain, what we did all through 2025 at Learn Adventurously, why I've been a little bit absent in the last half of 2025, and then talk about some of these really cool projects that we have going on for 2026. So timestamps are down below if you want to hop around, and then also the written version of this update is already up on the website with this video embedded into it. But we're just going to start very simply with what were the biggest changes at Learn Adventurously. If you don't know who I am or what Learn Adventurously is, let me give you the quick elevator pitch. My name is Dylan Jones. I am a wildlife biologist. My research interests are largely in tropical ecology in Belize, but my master's work used large geographic and phylogenetic datasets to inform conservation decisions for the world's turtles. However, Learn Adventurously is my educational platform and website. So things like the library are hosted on Learn Adventurously, where we have the newsletter, blog, webinars, resources, just a whole bunch of educational material. This is also paired with self-paced courses. So we have ones on R and statistics and phylogenetics, as well as weekly lessons related to a theme. We call these lab reports. And right now we're talking about evolutionary theory. So over the past year, Learn Adventurously has seen a massive change, and I want to take this video to summarize some of the biggest changes as well as challenges with that I haven't spoken about publicly. And then we're also going to talk about some of the things that we're doing in 2026. So there's a long history of Learn Adventurously stuff that's been scattered and not concentrated, and I'm working on fixing that. So hopefully this video will serve to fill in some of the gaps if you've heard me talk about it, but you don't really know what we do. I first wanted to just talk about some of the back end stuff. I'm not going to bore you with all of the nitty gritty details. Actually, over in the library, we have a whole section just for the lab updates. I try to put one out once a month. So you can read all of these if you want to. But the biggest thing that we should start with, if we go back, is that I decided pretty early on to treat Learn Adventurously more like a business, not a project. And what I mean by that is that Learn Adventurously started when I was in grad school. I started it as basically a blog, and then we started offering courses, and then we started doing events, and then we started doing trips. That order is actually all messed up, but doesn't matter. We've just done a lot of different things. So there was just a lot of drudging up all of this old stuff that we had been doing and then trying to incorporate it more into a business flow, because at the end of the day, you need to make money to keep this stuff going. And the biggest way that I made it into more of a business is that I transferred everything over to Zoho, or at least everything that I could. Zoho is one of these large software collections. So actually, this update that I'm in is written in Zoho. So it replaces my MailChimp. It does like all the email automations. I do my social scheduling. It handles the billing for the lab. So if I sell anything, Zoho's handling that. Handles all the emails that get sent out. It handles customer data, website forms, marketing. It just does a lot of things. And I pay, I think $37 a month is when I do the annual plan, if I remember right. So I have just been centralizing as much as I could onto Zoho. It's amazing. I love it. I highly recommend it. Just me canceling MailChimp and switching to Zoho saved me money because I was paying $75 a month for MailChimp. So, you know, one of those things where it was just better and I can do it. But I could talk about Zoho all day. I think I did just get approved for their affiliate program. I don't have the link on me, so I will add it down below. If you want to actually message me and talk more about Zoho and stuff, just let me know. But yeah, I guess just that's like my little disclosure that I guess I do have an affiliate link for Zoho. I want to be clear about that. The second biggest change for the back end is actually the library and the help desk. So I referenced the library already. So yeah, this is all part of the library. We have monthly updates. We have the newsletter, resources. But across the entire lab, I also have this little checkbox down here, this little question mark. And that opens up the Biologist help desk. So I've been building this out. This is a centralized knowledge base of just questions and answers for biologists. So it's everything from biology help. This one has like identification help. I added some like snake scale count diagrams. So if you're on Learn Adventurously and you're reading something you want to know, you can quickly access some of these resources. But it also has things like statistical tests or software recommendations, just all of those little questions and little resources that biologists always seem to need. I'm just collecting them into the knowledge base. So that was a big update that I added in, but I haven't really added as much information into there as I have wanted to. That is changing. YouTube has given me the ability to live stream in short or vertical form, I mean. So I want to do Biologist Helpdesk streams maybe every week where I just stream for a few hours and we just answer questions with the explicit goal of adding them to the help desk. So that will be coming soon. But the other big update with this is the library itself. The library did not look like this like 2 months ago. I did a massive update. I need to optimize it a little bit. It's gotten a little slower, but I want to go with this direction design-wise. So my focus is that in 2026, I really do believe that will be the year of the independent blog. I see massive changes going on with things like the Fediverse and ActivityPub, making it easier to blog and actually get your blog out there. So I'm investing way more into this. So if you want to get on the newsletter and actually get really, really cool features to your email, you're going to get a lot more of those. I have things like why I'm breeding a million mealworms in my apartment, how giant tortoises may not be island giants, how hurricanes affect the evolutionary history of anoles, and just like a lot of really cool biology work on here. Yeah, and then with these updates too, the second big update within the library is that I've actually been updating all of the designs. That's been the biggest thing. So not just the wrapper on here, but I've been going through into individual blogs, individual features, and letting them have the customization. So we are a work in progress. I will fix this. So I'll fix that today. I promise. That's the promise. Great. That's probably been like that for a while. Let's go to a different one though. But yeah, so all of my blogs, I'm just trying to make them easier to read. I'm adding in these videos into all of them. That's sort of the new pipeline that I'm developing. But also things like our resources and our webinars, they now just have a way more consistent format. This is something I'm actively building out from scratch. So I'll eventually add in like author details, related resources, and all that. But you can also access all of our resources without a login anymore. I fixed some of the spam issues that I was having that made me switch that over. So if you want to access anything, the library is where I'm focusing most of my energy on for this next upcoming year. And one thing I am adding to the library are project pages. I'm considering projects just anything that we're working on over a longer period of time. So that includes like research projects that we will talk about later on in this update video, but also things like our old bio blitzes. I want to have a project page for that talks about the past blitzes and talks about these upcoming blitzes we're doing, as well as one for like the Million Mealworm project or like Naturalist Showdown. So I'll be making custom pages for those that actually collect the information more, and that'll be all added to the library. Okay, and then a big update that I did at the end of 2025, so this was over November and December, is that I transferred everything, all of our courses, over to a Moodle installation. So what that means for the end user is that the courses are now much easier to access and manage. So I can actually customize y'all's pages depending on the user. So like this name field is auto-generated. Can have better announcements, and again, just way better organization of all of our material. And then the biggest thing too is that I can add a schedule where I can actually give you assignments. This is like a big thing that I've wanted for a very long time. So again, for the end user, it just allows for a lot more customization and a lot more capabilities. I had to manually transfer over all of our courses. So you can see, getting started with R&R Studio, all of the lessons, all of the quizzes, everything. They have been transferred over and they should be all complete and looking good. But of course, that was a massive project. There's over, I think it's over 200 lessons now is where we're at. So that was a very chaotic period of my life. And that is why I took a week off. Because yeah, that was exhausting. Manual copy and pasting, but here we are. So this is brand new. This is something that I'm hoping to develop over time. Right now, it's just kind of the same as the last version of the courses, but it will be developed more. And it's already an improvement. I don't know why I'm underselling it. But for the back end, for me, this is actually something that I'm super, super, super excited for. And I think I will save what I'm excited for the end of this, where we talk about what's to come in 2026. So, and now let's actually transition to talking about the Learn Adventurously Bioclub. So if we go to the website and click on join the lab, boom, 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 boom. So we have lab memberships. And the Learn Adventurously Bioclub, abbreviated to the lab, you can access for 10 a month or 90 a year, blah 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 blah, access passes. But what actually is this, and why did I do this? So I have a couple videos that explain why I made the shift. They're actually posted at the start of this year. For historical context, I originally was selling courses where you could just buy access to the course for lifetime access, and they were selling for anywhere from like $90 to up to $300. And I didn't like that. It just really wasn't. The people I want in the courses cannot afford that, right? So I'm thinking of grad students and struggling students who are already paying on tuition. I'm thinking of people who can't afford a traditional education. And it's at that like awkward price point where it's like, I know it's worth it. I know it's a good value, and it is, because comparable courses were triple that price. That's why I priced it at a third. But I didn't like it either because it sucked to market. I hated doing it. And I was just like, I had that moment of like, I wouldn't even purchase my own courses. They're too much. So whenever like all the funding stuff got pulled at the start of this year, that's when I changed everything. And I said, okay, screw it. We're doing a subscription service. I know people hate subscriptions, but it just mathematically makes so much more sense. My 3 courses that I had then, Biostatistics, R, and Phylogenetics, if you had purchased all of them, you were spending around $400. So at this, the most expensive you pay is, I guess, technically the 40 for 3 months, right? So you'd have to pay for 30 months straight of the most expensive plan to just have the same value of those 3 courses. And I'm always adding courses, right? Since we did the lab, I've added about 70 new lessons. So paying per lesson is something I just did not like. So that's why we moved to subscription. It's cheaper, and I can actually do more, like now that I've played around with it more. But now let's talk about the problems with this, because oh boy, was this difficult. So you're going to discover I love the rule of 3s, and we have 3 major unexpected challenges of the lab. The first is that all of my marketing was destroyed. So I was originally promoting single courses, right? I would make a marketing plan for just the R course or just the phylogenetics course, right? And there's problems with that too. But the problem I was having is that now I'm not doing that. Instead, the end pitch has to be join for subscription access. And what I learned was that people don't really care about historical courses as like the main selling point, right? And this is something that I would, I looked up marketing research for membership courses, and the biggest thing is recurring updates and regular actionable to-dos, and just this feeling that stuff is always happening. So, additionally, I migrated everything over to Zoho, right? So like I said, I took myself off of MailChimp and I went over to Zoho. So that meant that all of my email automations were also just gone, right? I didn't have them anymore. I couldn't import and export them the way I wanted to, nor did I really think they mattered because, again, completely different end goal product. So I just didn't have any marketing, that even though I didn't have any marketing. That's really what I was saying. And then at some point I was having this, I think it was sometime around July or August. I was trying to do marketing, and I was trying to still figure out what the lab is going to look like. That's kind of what we'll talk about in part 2. So I had these 2 things that were just kind of competing with each other for attention, and they were kind of like making each other worse because I didn't really know what I was doing. So I didn't really know what I could market, right? So eventually I just said, okay, we're going to ignore marketing until I figure out what the hell I'm doing. So At some point, I made a decision to focus 10% of my effort on the marketing and just focus on making this work. So that's why we have a new library. That's why we have a new Moodle. That's why we have brand new courses. So let's move on to point 2, which was that I needed to figure out new content. Like I said, it made more sense from a membership thing to actually get regular content. It's also something that I enjoy doing more. It's what I would do with Instagram as well. So it also just makes more sense. I don't want to say, hey, you're a member, let me ghost you for 3 months while I develop a new course. You expect regular updates. You would want to know that stuff is going on, right? So that was just something I think I knew, but I didn't really manage well. So in the last 2 quarters of the year, so Q3, Q4, I really just focused on trying to make regular content. That's why we started the lab reports. Lab reports were just supposed to be weekly lessons, but the first lessons on species identification just weren't really it. They weren't what we needed. They weren't working as well. So then we started doing themed lessons, and then we had an awesome theme, but it just went too long. So essentially, whole end of the year, I have just been refining what that regular content will look like. And I feel pretty good about what the lab members are going to get coming in 2026. Again, we'll talk about that at the end of this video, or you can skip ahead if you want to. But the biggest thing is that I'm just going to be creating more short assignments and interactive lessons related to the theme instead of trying to make these massive, almost mini courses every week. So the last bit is that I was struggling with balance with all the other content, right? So, I don't just have the lab. I also have social media, YouTube, and newsletter, all this other stuff. I struggle with social media. I really struggle with the major social media apps in this current day and age for a variety of reasons. So I am actively looking at ways to make them the least of my priority. Focusing more on YouTube and also my own, of course, Learn Adventurously. So that's really like the big plans. But what I discovered in 2025 is the balance between all of this was so much harder for me to really comprehend. And the biggest thing that took a chunk out of my time was the research phase. I have a line in here. While I was teaching seed bank ecology for the lab, I was also writing about major biogeographic events for the newsletter, while also teaching myself JavaScript and rereading evolutionary theory for some YouTube videos. So it was just like, Tuesday is a completely different mindset than Wednesday, and I have to re-upload everything and reopen everything every time I want to research everything. So it was just too scattered. So, and this just led to things falling to the wayside. I'm always going to prioritize the lab members' content first, just because they're paying. They're the ones that are keeping all of this going. But yeah, things just fell to the wayside, and I needed to spend some time to figure out how to actually do all this in this new format. I'm not just doing things on Instagram and cross-posting elsewhere. I'm fundamentally changing how I create content. And it's a little side note, I really, really love what I'm doing now. I feel much happier in terms of what I'm putting out in the world. Okay, so let's cover what you can expect to see in 2026. This is something I'm really, really excited for. And the first one is just a lot more lab content. So we're going to be making a lot more lab reports and new courses. And I'm just excited because I've been putting a lot of work into some backend stuff so that we can actually make some really cool courses for this year. What you can expect to see first would actually be our evolutionary theory course. This is one I'm really, really excited to create and teach. We've already started some information on it in a few scattered lessons and in our recent lab reports on evolutionary nuances. However, if you've been watching this channel for a bit, you know that I'm building out an evolution simulator. So students will be able to input parameters and see evolutionary models and actually inform, use that to inform questions and answers and actually learn evolution by interacting with an evolutionary tool, not just reading equations. This is something I'm super, super excited for. I think there's a lot of stuff we can build off of this evolution simulator. And I'm just excited to get that up and going. So that will happen pretty soon. You'll start to see the simulator up on the website in probably the next few weeks. It will be made for free in the library, so anyone can interact with it. Just that the lab members and stuff will get, case studies and assessments and stuff that they can interact with it more. And of course, explaining all the material. Um, yeah. Oh, and then yeah. So the kind of slight change though, with lab reports, lab content, is that originally at the start or at the end of 2025, I was essentially trying to create lessons for lab reports that I could then use in courses. So if I covered genetic drift in a lesson, I was then going to upload that to an evolution course, right? And I can do that. It does work, but it wasn't really efficient. So all my past courses, the way I did them is that I wrote the textbook first, and then I recorded a lesson for like every section of that textbook while updating the textbook as I record the lesson, which is also what I'm going to do to this blog. And then while I am uploading the course, I build out all of the assessments and the quizzes and mastery checks and all that. And that workflow is awesome for building out courses. It just kind of sucks for lab members and stuff because it's nothing for a month and then a lot of stuff in 2 weeks. So I realized that I just can't do it that way. I can't be stacking things in that way in an effective manner. So instead, what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to be building out the courses sort of independently of the lab reports. I'm just going to be doing it on my own. I'm not going to be saying, here's the first lesson or here's the second lesson. It just is really inefficient to do it that way. And instead, I am going to be giving more action-oriented items every single week. And what I mean by action-oriented items is that it may just be write a 500-word reflection on a short case study. It may be, here is a PDF for that evolution simulator. Run these simulations and tell me your thoughts. It may be just, here's a little pop quiz, check your understanding of genetic drift. Or, may just be pointing towards a blog that I just wrote and maybe giving you an additional lesson, right? I'll still be making video lessons and sending them out. They just may not be explicitly created to later be used in a course, is what I'm saying. I've been trying this out a little bit more. It's way better. It just works way better for my workflow, and it also means that I'll get more courses out. So kind of a win-win. But wanted to make that super, super explicit. Okay, so let's cover all of the public-facing content. So everything that we just covered was all stuff for lab members, but this is now what is going to be free and open, and just anyone with an internet connection can access. Like I already said, I'm going to bet that 2026 is the year of the independent blog, and that is something that I am going to match. So this basically means that I will be making all of my content with a blog first, intending to make it with a blog first that goes up on my website. From there, it will be repurposed or sent out to Instagram and Facebook and Threads, and also all the Fediverse apps as well. We'll talk about that in a second. So YouTube is essentially what I'm doing now. I'm going to write the blog and then use it as an extemporaneous script for YouTube. And then I'm going to, of course, pop it onto the blog, the video itself. So really, the reason I'm doing this is just because I'm so tired of social media apps and I'm tired of them. The truth is that even though I've been posting on Instagram for over 10 years, I stopped scrolling in the feed maybe 5-6 years ago. I just think it's addictive, I think it's harmful, and I think it really screws up people's minds. So, want to be doing something a little bit different. So what this means is that if you want to interact with the blog, you can interact with the blog on the newsletter. So if you're checking your emails, that is probably the best place to get the information first. Of course, YouTube, you can subscribe to this channel and actually get all of these updates. But the second big thing is that I've also federated the blog. So I've added it to the Fediverse. I've downloaded the ActivityPub plugin. And what this means is that any new posts going forward are sent out to the Fediverse. You can actually view my posts like on Mastodon and stuff. And if you interact with them through Mastodon, keep using that example, that comment will show up, or that like will show up on my blog, on my website. And then I can respond to you as well. Okay, and let's close this off with covering the upcoming projects for 2026. So I already talked about the evolution simulator and the upcoming evolution course. Super, super, super excited for that one. I've been talking about it for a while, and the simulator's just been taking longer to make, partially because I started creating content alongside the simulator. So that is my B. The second major project I am looking forward to is our Mealworm project. So I started breeding mealworms. This is one of our breeder beetle bins. Oops, sorry. And I have a lot to say about this. So, why did I start breeding mealworms? Well, I wrote up a big blog post about it, like I showed earlier, that it's broken, and I will fix that soon. They'll be fixing by the time you see this. And actually used to breed mealworms professionally. I grew up in a pet store, and I had a giant facility in like kind of the back room where I had like giant tubs in a rack system, and I was breeding mealworms and shipping them out and selling them to people. So I've done it before, is kind of what I'm getting at. But I started this as a joke, and then I realized that one, there really isn't anyone selling mealworms in my local area. So there's a market for it, of course. I know that people, all the pet shops and the farmers are getting it shipped from out of state. So, two, it's something that I can do in my apartment. They don't know, but hey, whatever. Yeah, and then three, I realized how awesome it is for research and education. I was thinking about it and I was like, well, what research projects could I do with a mealworm, right? And first thing was, well, I could estimate population size with a mark capture recapture study. So what we're going to do is a video for a million mealworms where we actually estimate a million mealworms by teaching people how to do mark capture recapture. Another one was just like population growth rates, right? I'm going to do that. I'm actually going to write that up probably as a blog pretty soon, where it's talking about how long does it take until we expect a million mealworms, and then we'll actually go through and measure them and see survival rates and stuff like that. And then I was like, well, we're kind of doing projects. We could easily do a little research project with them. We could easily put two of them in two different temperature regimes and see how quickly they grow. And we could take those measurements. And with those measurements, we could host a live course on Learn Adventurously and teach people how to do project design and basic statistical analysis and, actually maybe create a digital survey form for collecting this data. And then, so kind of what happened was this, is that I started thinking about it and I realized there's actually a lot I could do with them. And then I got even further into the mealworm madness. Oh my goodness, they are crazy. So you can process them into protein powders and oils. They are human edible, but not really used that often. If you have a shellfish allergy, you can't have them. Then I found out that you can actually process them into biofuels, and they are looking at using mealworms for recycling because they can consume plastic. And it's just like all these really cool side uses of mealworms that I think from just a purely like biologist scientific perspective would be really fascinating to explore. Kind of more on like the ecology, evolution angle, right? So I started breeding them. It's a way to make a little bit of extra money. But also, I did think that there's some really good utility here. It would be fantastic to run like a 6-week experiment alongside a school or a university or a educational group or something where we do this and teach the kids how to do research. So that's one thing that I'm working on right now. The beetles, I bought 100 from the pet shop, and they are all now beetles. So yeah. I'm going to do a bin change in 2 weeks, and we'll start to have our first generation of mealworms. All right. So the third project, yeah, audio ecology in West Virginia. I talked about this very briefly. Can I get rid of that? Can I? Yes, I can. So I started collaborating with Goldberry Grove at the end of fall. So we were on his property and yeah, clearing trees, getting chestnuts ready to plant, and talking about future projects. So one thing we are working on doing is an audio study. We're going to get some open source audio recorders and set them all over the property to measure bats, frogs, and birds. So this will be a pretty straightforward study. I've done plenty of audio ecology in the past, but our secondary goal with this, is to make a bunch of ecology courses alongside it. So teaching people how to run an audio ecology study. How can you actually set up these things? How can you track them? What are some good protocols? How can you do experimental design, etc., etc., as well as a few other types of projects. So we're doing this as a collaboration, and making a whole bunch of ecology courses alongside it. So this is some stuff that I want to do with other folks and other places and other facilities. So if you want to arrange something, reach out, of course. There's some people I need to reach out to that I've been really bad about reaching out to as well to do this. But yeah, so that's a big project, and I'm hoping it will spawn off other projects. And then, of course, if you're a lab member, you get some cool ecology courses, finally, not just theoretical stuff. Okay, the last project, and I'm putting this one at the end because there's so much I want to do with this, is Gamifying Learn Adventurously. So if you're an old lab member, you know that technically I had gamification on the website. It would just say, you got 10 points for completing a lesson. But there was nothing really attached to it. There was no real gamification. There was no leaderboard. There was nothing to exchange. And there are like custom solutions for doing this that, I can immediately add it to Moodle and give those points and display a leaderboard. I want to do something more. I can do gamification through Zoho. There's a customer relationship manager in there. I can create a database that's just point totals for every individual, and I can easily make files that track how you get your points. That's not outside of my realm of expertise. I have also learned that I can do things like, interface with the iNaturalist API to get a collection of observations from a particular user. I also know I can interface and look at anything that occurs on my website. So if you download a resource or submit an RSVP to a webinar or open emails even, we do live in a big data age. So I want to develop a custom gamification portal through Learn Adventurously that if you're a user, doesn't matter if you're a lab member or not, you can start getting points, and eventually we'll start rewarding them, maybe free lab memberships or free workshops or merchandise or whatever. I'm not worrying about the end goal yet. I just want to build out a custom gamification. And the biggest thing that I am excited for is in that interface with iNaturalist. We have run international BioBlitzes in the past, and what I wanted to do is run another one this year really badly. I couldn't run it last year, but I really want to run this one this year. And I want to develop a tool where people can see their point total during the competition, because we have a custom point total. It's based off of the one I had in my herpetology course in undergrad. So shout out to Toby Hibbets and Lee Fitzgerald for that. And so basically I just want people to be able to say, what are my point right now? So if I can already do that, then I can already just add those points to an individual's account on Learn Adventurously. Opt in, of course, you can decide. And maybe start doing more with that, right? Have some ideas. I don't want to commit to anything, but I will be adding the gamification this year. Hopefully it's just going to be like a 1 week project that I can just really hyper focus on, blitz it out, and then just continually build on over time. But that are the major projects that I have for this year. Those are the ones that I can publicly say, and ones that are more in tune, in place, set in stone. More set in stone than the other ones. And so I just want to say, make a little conclusion. This was a really chaotic year. This was like a really awful year for a lot of people. It's really awful. And yeah, that was awful. It's not starting off great either in 2026, but hey, that's, it's life, I guess. I guess this is life. So if you want to support things, I'm just going to keep plugging away at educational content. My goal is that, people are losing further and further access to education, particularly education on how to properly save and conserve our natural world. So my goal with Learn Adventurously is to give people the opportunity to conserve, so things like our BioBlitzes and other projects we want to do, but also give them the tools and the knowledge they need to affect change in their local areas. So that's how I think I'm going to make an impact on the world, and that's what I'm going to keep plugging away at, despite the conditions of the world around me. If you want to support, join the lab. Hey, that's the quickest way to support the lab. If you don't want to do a recurring subscription, I totally get it. I just added 3 and 6 month access passes, and also on every single blog post now, there's a little support us form where you can just toss like $5 my way. It's a pay what you want. You can add whatever you want. And yeah, hey, as always, thank you for learning adventurously.